The weekly portion of the Torah, meaning the portion that we read in the synagogue on Shabbat, the name is really significant. The name of this week's portion, for example, is Bishalach, when he sent. Who sent? Who sent whom and where? When Pharaoh sent the Jews out of Egypt. What a statement. What an incredible statement. For three portions of the Torah, we're talking about how he refused to let the Jews go. Now, it says after the 10th plague, the death of the firstborn, Pharaoh let the Jews go. Surrendered, gave up. The Torah says no. He sent the Jews out of Egypt. He sent them? Wasn't it more like he could no longer refuse? Or he allowed? But he sent them? What a powerful message. Changes everything, doesn't it? He didn't let the Jews go. He sent them out. The idea behind it is that when Pharaoh realized that he was wrong and God was right, he didn't just quit. If you discover that God is telling you something and God is right, what do? You do what God tells you to do. So when Pharaoh realized God wants to take his people to Mount Sinai to give them a Torah, when he realized that was what was happening, Pharaoh said, "Go. You have to go." He sent them. That was God's victory in Egypt. That Egypt, represented by Pharaoh, was actually encouraging godliness, spurring the godliness in the Jew. So here's what happened. At first, Pharaoh didn't believe in a personal God. Never heard of such a thing. He felt that this kind of religiosity was man-made, human beings waxing a little too philosophical and a little too theological, trying to invent a God, trying to create a God, trying to find a God that suits them. My God, the God of my people. Pharaoh said, knock it off. Don't be crazy. You know what happens to people who think like that? They go insane, and they end up killing themselves. It's happened a number of times in history. So don't do that. Be real, be responsible. Real and responsible is what Egypt is all about. And that was true. It was the most advanced in science, in medicine, in technology. They built the pyramids, they embalmed bodies that lasted thousands of years. They were a very advanced people. Many of the things that they knew how to do, we don't know how to do 3,000 years later. They didn't use sticks or flintstones to start a fire. I don't know what they did use, but we're told that they started a fire from a fire. They were sophisticated. They were the future. So Pharaoh was saying to Moshe, you're going to take the people out into the desert Are you crazy? You're going to go looking for God. You're going to develop all sorts of illusions and delusions. Suddenly you're going to become God and they're going to worship you. And then they'll find out that you're not perfect and they'll all kill themselves. Come on, you know that's what happens. So don't be so irresponsible and don't do this to your people. You're going to end up in a bloody mess. Yes, working hard is not pleasant, but it's real. You're building the future. What happened in the end? Pharaoh sends the Jews. Why? Because eventually it dawned on him, we're not looking for God. We're not looking for religion. We're not going out into the desert for a religious experience. In fact, most Jews refused to go. 1/5 of the people left Egypt. 1/5. Pharaoh realized this is not a people looking for God. This is God looking for his people. Took 10 plagues to convince him. But he wasn't reacting to the pain of the plagues. He was reacting to the realization God is not going to let up until he gets his people. Because this is God looking for his people, not people looking for God. He said, well, if God is looking for you, go. Don't mess with God. That's a big step for Pharaoh. Godliness had become real in the darkness of Egypt. That was amazing. So what happens? Pharaoh sends the Jews, encourages them to go, because it's the right thing to do. Now all of a sudden they're at the beach. There's an ocean in the way. And Pharaoh has a change of heart. They're not going to worship God. They've got ulterior motives. So why should I let them go? They're no better than me. So he chases them. So they've got the Egyptians chasing them from behind. They've got the ocean in front of them. And they've got these sheer cliffs to the right and to the left. They're locked in. There's no place to go. So they pray and they cry and they complain. What should they do? Fight or flight? Surrender or suicide? What should they do? You know what God says? I got a great idea. Go to Mount Sinai. I'm waiting for you there. They said, we want to go. We're trying to go. There's this ocean in the way. God said, no excuses. Go to Mount Sinai. Because if that's where you need to be, then get there. They kind of got the message. And one man started the ball rolling. He jumped into the water up to his nostrils, and the sea split. What a powerful message. What a powerful precedent. If you need to be at Mount Sinai, go to Mount Sinai. Don't lose sight of where you're going or what your purpose is. There's an obstacle. Yes, you have to get around the obstacle. But don't get so focused on getting around the obstacle that when you get to the other side, you have forgotten where you were going. That happens so often. You get married because you want to have a wonderful, warm, healthy, loving family. Then you get into an argument. Oh, this is an obstacle. We got to go for counseling. We got to learn good communications. So you go for years and you learn to communicate. And now you're wondering, why be married? Who needs it? So what happened was, overcoming the obstacle to a good, healthy family, you don't remember what a good, healthy family feels like or sounds like, and you don't want it anymore. That should not happen. So God says to them, yes, an ocean is a complication. Big complication. You remember the plan? I took you out of Egypt so that I can talk to you at Mount Sinai. So what should you do? You should go to Mount Sinai. And if you're determined to go to Mount Sinai, things will work out. The ocean will get out of your way, if that's the only option. So you go to Mount Sinai. And if you're sincere on getting to Mount Sinai, I'll take care of the obstacles. But if you get focused on the obstacle, you may never show up at Mount Sinai, and that would be a disaster. So the sea split. What was that all about? Why put the ocean there in the first place and then have to split it? Put it someplace else where it won't be a problem. There are many locations in the world that can use an ocean, like deserts and stuff. So you had to put it there. Didn't you know the Jews were going to be traveling on that path? The ocean is a universe unto itself. Everything that exists on Earth has its counterpart in the ocean. It's a whole universe. Fascinating. But the difference between that universe and this universe is that people who live on oxygen don't always stay where there's oxygen. We explore. We go into outer space. There's no oxygen. We go deep sea diving. There's no oxygen. And we often pay for it. You left the place of life. That's dangerous. The creatures of the sea never leave their source of life. They don't go exploring. And if they get beached, they're in trouble. So that's the difference. There are creatures who are always in touch with their life source, and then there are creatures who may stray because they have freedom of choice. So the righteous, the holy, the saintly, they're called fish, like a fish in water. Godliness is natural to them, and they will never stray. They will never cut themselves off from their source of life. And then there's the average person who has freedom of choice, who could very easily get verblunget. That's a Yiddish word that means exactly what it sounds like. Confused, disoriented, lost, verblunget. When the sea splits and you get to see what is usually covered and hidden by the water, that means that the secrets of godliness, holiness, saintliness were all revealed. The creatures of the sea are usually hidden, concealed. The concealment was removed. As a result, the water split. So the Jews saw godliness for the first time in a way that they had never seen it before. All the secrets were revealed. And that's when they said, "This is my God, and I will glorify him." This means You're pointing to something that you can see. So it was an awesome revelation. And again, why do we keep talking about it 3,000 years later? Not because it's a neat trick to make water stand still. It's because of what was revealed when that happened. And since then, godliness is so embedded in our collective memory that we just can't lose it. That's a good memory. We have a Sunday night program for VIPs that you might be interested in. It's informal, it's questions and answers, it's conversation. It's really relaxed, it's really pleasant, enjoyable, informative, and kind of community-like. It's a Sunday night program, there's a Wednesday morning program for the VIPs, and there's a Wednesday night program. All of it just conversation, casual, laid back, unscripted. So join us, take a look, click the link below and see which of the three suits you best, and join us for some enjoyable conversation.